And showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. A look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network. I am joined this week, as every week, by my co-host Eric Simpson, a business transformation and improvement consultant to MSPs and other IT providers. Eric, how you doing this week?
I'm doing fantastic, Rich. I'm feeling well rested for some reason I can't fathom. What about you?
Pretty similar. And I've been pondering this all morning, in fact, and I think I know what it is. We're at home.
Oh, that's right. We're not traveling. We're not traveling this week. That's true. That does help get keep us refreshed and lively, doesn't it?
It really, really does. Yeah. And the two of us, we were just discussing this off the air. We've got 2 whole additional weeks off the road coming up. So we're just going to have some serious spring in our step by the time we go back to traveling again.
Ooh, feel young again. Whoa, awesome.
All right, well, let's dive into our top story for the week here. And if you're just looking at the headline as we posted it on ChannelProNetwork.com, it concerns the appointment of Angus Robertson to the post of Chief Revenue Officer at Axcient. Now, on its own, that's an interesting piece of news. Robertson was the Chief Marketing Officer there. Now he's going to be the Chief Revenue Officer. But the reason we're highlighting it here is it's part of a bigger story that has begun to emerge in recent weeks. Some of the reporting I did on this in my article earlier in the week is based on a conversation I had both with Robertson and his boss, David Bennett, who is the CEO of Axion. He stepped into that job in February. He had been actually the Chief Revenue Officer at Webroot prior to that. And, he's been doing what most incoming CEOs do when they're new in the job. He's been talking to customers. He's been out traveling a lot, really trying to understand how people feel about the company, where the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities are. And he's come up with a vision for where he wants to take Axcient in the future based on those conversations that relates to this job change for Robertson. And the idea, basically, the chief bit of feedback that Bennett feels like he's getting from MSPs out there is that working with BDR vendors can be more difficult, really, than it ought to be. The licensing is complicated, the storage arrangements, the pricing, it's all a little bit more complicated than it ought to be. And Bennett believes that he can turn simplicity and ease of doing business into a competitive advantage for Axion. And so part of that, the person who's really going to be on point, I think, in a lot of ways for executing that strategy will be Angus Robertson. So he was in charge of marketing before. In his new position, he's also in charge of sales and Axion's partner success team, which is just 100% focused on partner satisfaction. And overall, his main job is to make it really, really easy for people to do business with Axion and to make MSPs really happy to be partnering with that company. And it's something that Axion and other BDR vendors, have to be thinking about these days. What is it that's going to attract MSPs and retain MSPs at a time when you're seeing companies like Kaseya and SolarWinds, for example, create these increasingly expansive suites that include backup? So if you're a standalone, as it were, data protection vendor, what's going to be your edge? And ease of doing business is apparently where Axcient is placing its bet.
Yes, Rich, it was very interesting to read the approach that's being taken here. And it's not something that we typically see in our channel. We see this in other industries and professional services and more consultative industries where, the experience of the customer is paramount, right? We see this a lot. I mean, I can think of, the automotive industry. I mean, dealerships, is a great example where now if you go to, buy a new car or get your car serviced, I mean, the lounge at the car dealerships, it's like, a first class lounge at an airport now, right? I mean, they give you lattes and all kinds of different espressos and food, and you can watch 3 different TVs, and they have things for you to do while you're there and internet access. I mean, it's that customer experience that these other industries have figured out is the unique identifier when everything else seems so kind of commoditized, right? I mean, these BDR organizations, you think they all have pretty much parity between feature and benefit. So this is a really interesting approach by Axcient to attack it this way, and I bet they'll get a lot of traction in doing so. And the other point that you make in your article is, they've been relatively quiet the last year or so, as other competitors have really taken charge of marketing and events and things like that. So I would assume this has been kind of this internal reorg and restructuring to come out with this new strategy.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they for really a good solid 6-9 months at this point have been in the process of coming to market with new programs and strategies, et cetera, in a serious way. That partner success team I mentioned was created, I believe, close to a year ago at this point. That was part of this larger campaign to turn partner satisfaction into a competitive advantage. They talk a lot about ease of doing business. I'll provide one concrete example of that they've already rolled out, and it's sort of a hint at the kind of thing they're going to be doing more and more often. They have this new pricing scheme for their Microsoft Office 365 backup solution, basically, where you're going to get for one price Outlook, OneDrive, and SharePoint backup with unlimited storage. So instead of maybe getting different prices for each of the different Office 365 solutions and capacity or consumption based upticks in what you're paying, one price, everything you need to back up in Office 365, unlimited storage, and that's kind of the idea that they're going after here. Is it's just going to be simpler to do business with us, and they're thinking that is what's going to attract and retain MSPs.
It's a unique and disruptive strategy, I'll tell you, because again, we know that the easier it is to do business with an organization, the happier, the customers are. So, I'd like to follow up on this story and see exactly, what the result is in 6 months or so, because, if they promote it properly, I think it's going to garner a lot of attention, because, it is a nightmare trying to keep up with licensing and subscriptions and all that. And when you make it simple and bundle it all for a flat fee, all you can eat, kind of reminds me of another industry.
Well, speaking of 6-month checkups and checking in on things, Eric, that has something to do with your tip of the week.
It certainly does. So this week's tip of the week is all about taking a company health check. It's kind of the middle of the year, business owners, and I encourage you to take a moment, take a pause, maybe even consider doing a 1 or 2 day retreat with your team to identify where you are in your business growth strategy, and look at every business unit and look at the milestones and goals that you set out for yourselves at the beginning of the year, and measure your performance and make some tough decisions, right? Understand where you are, understand if you're getting traction in different areas. I mean, and look at your customer base as well, and start thinking more about ultimate value of the organization. Are you making all the decisions in every business unit that ultimately increase the value of the organization? As an executive, our jobs are to increase shareholder value. Now, if you're the only shareholder, that means you, but if you have other folks that are looking to you to be making those leadership decisions to continue growing the business, I encourage you to be tough on yourself and call a rose, and look at decisions you made in the past and rethink those. And if it's time to make a different decision, be bold, and then have another meeting at the beginning of the year and see how we're doing. And let's keep doing that every 6 months and do our company health check. So it's time.
Yeah, and it's great. I think it's a great idea, great practice to really put this on the calendar and make sure that you do it not just now, but every 6 months. It's so easy. In fact, it's almost impossible not to get completely swept up in the day-to-day details of running the business, and you just don't get that chance to step back and take the big picture view, ask the big questions about where you're at and where you're going. And it's really important to do that. And so I think building that into your calendar for the year is a really good idea.
I think that's a very important approach that you just mentioned, Rich. Get it on the calendar so it doesn't just become something that, yeah, we're going to get to it. Oh, we didn't get to do it last month. We'll do it next month. And it just keeps moving around and never gets done. So great tip.
Well, we have got time for just one more story this week, and it has to do with something that I think we all kind of understand, which is to say that this thing here, which we call a phone, is generally not used for phoning. This is really more like a computer than a phone, but there's some data out this week that sort of underscores the fact that people don't actually do a whole lot of phone stuff on phones. This comes from an organization called Hiya, Hiya. They describe themselves as the industry leader in nuisance and scam call protection. They have some research that indicates there were, let me just get this data for you, 25.3 billion scam calls or fraudulent calls made in the first half of 2019, according to their data, 25.3 billion. And as a result, only 48% of people will answer a call on their phone if they don't recognize who it's from. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you the truth, I don't answer a call if I don't recognize who's right. What about you, Eric?
Oh, I have many defenses in place to prevent me from picking up calls from someone that I don't know. So yeah, it's a big problem, and I probably received a good percentage of those 25 billions.
Yes, it certainly feels like that. But plenty of really great, constructive, productive things you can do with a phone, and apparently talking to people is not one of them for a lot of people. And we can blame, in part, scam callers.
Well, I know that there's some legislation, right, that they're talking about federally to block robocalls and things like that. I've been reading some of that recently. So, I mean, here's the data that indicates why people are so up in arms about it.
25.3 billion good reasons, basically, to pass that legislation. So, yeah, I'm all for it. Sign me up.
Me too.
That is all the time we have this week on the 5-Minute Roundup. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back again next week with another episode. If you like the show, you want to keep up with it, maybe take a look at some past episodes you didn't get a chance to see before, best thing to do is to go to YouTube and sign up to the ChannelPro Network channel there and hit the little bell that indicates you want to get notifications when new episodes are coming up so you can keep up with the show here. To read more about Axcient and its strategy, to get business growth tips that you can apply to your business every day, the place to go is ChannelProNetwork.com. We have got great new content for you going up there every day. To learn more about Eric and his business and the work he does with his clients, the place to go is ErickSimpson.com. That is ERICK Simpson.com. So as I say, we'll be back next week with another episode of the 5-Minute Roundup. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Eric and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.